Last spring, a young woman stopped me at the farmer's market, right there by my table of eggs and jam, and she asked me straight out how old I was. I told her 71. She near dropped her basket. She said her own face looked older than mine, and she is 34. Then she asked what cream I use, what serum, whether I had ever had the needles. I laughed so hard I had to set down the egg carton. I have never once sat in a chair and let a doctor put anything sharp into my face, and the only thing on my bathroom shelf that cost more than $6 is a bar of soap my daughter-in-law makes in her own kitchen. So I want to tell you today exactly what I do. All of it, plain, because I have watched too many women my age and younger spend money they do not have chasing a face that a little patience and the right habits would have given them for free. I am Rosie. I keep a garden and a kitchen and a house full of grandchildren most weekends. And I have spent better than 50 years learning what actually keeps a woman's skin looking like something instead of nothing. Not from a magazine, from my own mother, from watching what worked and what did not on the women in my own family, and from paying close attention to my own face in the mirror every single morning for half a century. I am not going to stand here and tell you wrinkles are optional. They are not. Every one of mine is earned, and I am not ashamed of a single line on this face. But there is a difference between the lines that come from a life well lived and the grey, papery, deflated look that comes from skin that has been starved and dried out and left unprotected for decades. That second kind, the tired kind, that one you can do a great deal about, and almost none of it costs money. Before I go any further, the handful of you who have asked, I did put together the full list of what my family has used for generations. The kitchen remedies and the garden ways, and this skin routine among them, over on rosiebyler.com. I will not mention it again in this video. It is there if you want it. What I'm about to tell you right here costs almost nothing, and most of it is already sitting in your kitchen or your medicine cabinet this very minute. Now, before I hand you a single remedy, I want you to understand what is actually happening to a face as it ages. Because once you understand the cause, every single thing I tell you after this will make plain sense instead of sounding like an old woman's superstition. There are really only 3 things that age a face faster than it needs to age. The first is sugar, plain and simple, and I will explain that one in a moment because it surprised me more than anything else I ever learned. The second is the sun, which we will get to, and the third is a starved, dried out, poorly fed layer of skin that never gets the raw materials it needs to rebuild itself. Nearly everything sold to you in a bottle is trying to patch over the damage those 3 things cause, instead of addressing why the damage happened in the first place. So let us go after the causes instead of the patches, and start with the one nobody in the beauty aisle will ever mention to you, because there is no cream that can undo it. That first cause is called glycation. And I did not know the word until my youngest son married a nurse who explained it to me at our own kitchen table one evening. When you eat a great deal of sugar, and I mean the sugar hiding in bread and soda and the sweetened coffee most folks drink without a second thought, that sugar attaches itself to the collagen fibres in your skin, the very fibres that keep it firm and springy. Once sugar attaches to a collagen fibre, that fibre turns stiff and brittle, the way a rubber band goes stiff and cracks after too many years in a hot drawer. A face full of glycated collagen looks dull, looks saggy, loses its bounce, and no cream rubbed on top of that stiffened fibre will ever soften it back up, because the damage sits underneath. not on the surface. I am not going to tell you to give up sugar entirely. I like a slice of pie, same as anybody. But I gave up the sweetened coffee I used to drink 3 times a day some 20 years back, and I have watched women half my age with a soda in hand every afternoon age faster across their 40s than I did across my whole 50s. That one habit, cutting the steady daily sugar rather than the occasional treat, does more for the actual structure of your skin than the most expensive jar on the shelf. And it saves you money instead of costing you any. Now let me tell you what to do instead, starting with the inside of the body, because the second cause, that starved layer of skin, gets fixed from the inside out, not the outside in. Skin is mostly a protein called collagen, and your body makes less of it every single year after about 25. By 70, that supply has thinned out considerably in most women, and that thinning is what causes the sinking, the papery look, the lines that no longer smooth back out. A jar of cream sitting on top of the skin cannot put collagen back into it. The molecule is far too large to pass through, no matter what the label promises you. But you can hand your body the raw material to keep making what it still can. And this is the part my own grandmother did without ever knowing the word collagen at all. She kept a stock pot going on the back of the stove most of the cold months, full of bones, chicken feet, knuckle bones from the butcher, simmered low for the better part of a day until the water turned to something thick enough to gel when it cooled. Bone broth, folks call it now, like it is some new discovery. It is the oldest kitchen habit there is. A cup of it a few times a week, in a soup or just sipped plain with a little salt, hands your body gelatin and the amino acids that build collagen, the exact raw material the skin needs to keep from collapsing. It costs the price of bones the butcher will often give you for nothing, because most people throw them away. I have been drinking a cup most mornings for 40 years, and I did not start it for my face. I started it because my mother did it, and it was free. The face came along as a gift I did not expect. The second thing, and this one surprised me when I finally understood it properly, is water. But not the way you have been told. Everybody says drink more water and leaves it there, and that is only half the truth. Skin needs water held inside it, not just water passing through you on its way to the kitchen sink. What holds water in the skin is a substance the body makes called hyaluronic acid, and you have likely seen that name on an expensive little bottle at the drugstore for $30 or $40 an ounce. Here is what they will not tell you on that label. Your own skin already makes it. What stops it from making enough is dehydration over years and years, the slow kind you never notice happening. So instead of buying the bottle, I feed the thing that makes the substance in the first place. Bone broth, again, does part of this work. So does eating the skin of a sweet potato, the pith of citrus fruit that most folks peel away and toss, and plain gelatin dissolved into warm water or tea. And I drink water steady through the day, not 2 glasses at supper and calling it done, but small sips from morning to night, because skin holds water best when it is topped up steadily rather than flooded once. That habit alone, kept up for a few months, will do more for the plumpness of a face than any cream on any shelf. Now for the outside of the skin, because what you put on it does matter, just not the way the advertisements have taught you to think about it. The mistake most women make, and I made it myself as a young wife before I knew better, is washing the face with something harsh enough to strip every bit of oil off it, and then trying to replace that oil with an expensive cream bought right back. You are paying twice for something that never needed undoing in the first place. What I have used on my face for going on 30 years now, morning and night, every single day, is plain oil, nothing else. A teaspoon of it, worked into dry skin before you ever touch water, then wiped away gentle with a warm, damp cloth. The oil dissolves the dirt and the old skin cells and the grime of the day, the same way oil lifts oil, and it leaves behind just enough of itself to keep the skin soft without ever stripping it bare. I use a plain sunflower oil most days because it sits light and does not clog. And on the driest weeks of winter, I switch to a little jojoba, which is closer to what your own skin already makes than any other oil you will find. A bottle runs $4 or $5 and lasts a season. No foaming cleanser, no toner, no 6 little bottles lined up on the counter, just oil, a warm cloth, and patience. After the cleaning comes the part that took my own mother's word for years before I believed her, and that is tallow. Rendered beef fat, cleaned and strained down to something smooth as butter. It sounds strange to modern ears, I know it does, but think about it plain. Your skin is made mostly of fat and cholesterol, held together in layers, and tallow, properly rendered, is remarkably close in its makeup to what your own skin produces to protect itself. The old farm wives kept a little crock of it by the washstand for chapped hands and wind-burned faces, because nothing else worked half so well. And it has never left our house since. I render my own from the fat trimmings the butcher sells for pennies, low and slow on the stove until it is clear and pours like honey. Then let it firm back up in a jar. If you want to try it yourself, ask the butcher for beef suet. Cut it small and let it melt on the very lowest heat for 2 or 3 hours. Then strain it through a clean cloth into a jar and let it set at room temperature. A pound of suet, often given away or sold for almost nothing, will render down to a jar that lasts you the better part of a year. A small amount worked into the skin at night after the oil cleaning, and the face wakes up soft instead of tight. It is not oily, not once it is worked in properly. It simply sinks into the skin the way nothing manufactured quite manages to. If rendering your own sounds like more than you want to take on this week, a plain tallow balm from a small farm supplier will do the same work. Just mind that it has nothing added to it, but maybe a little lavender and nothing else. Now, once a week, I do one more thing. And this one costs about as close to nothing as anything I will tell you today. Raw honey, warmed just slightly between clean fingers until it turns runny, smoothed over the whole face and left to sit 20 minutes while you sit still with your feet up, which any woman my age will tell you is worth doing regardless of what is on your face. Honey pulls moisture in and holds it there, and it has a mild natural action against the small everyday bacteria that cause breakouts and dullness without stripping the skin the way a harsh treatment would. You rinse it with warm water, and the face underneath feels tight in the good way, not the dry way. A jar of raw honey from a local keeper runs $6 or $8, and one jar will give you a face mask every week for the better part of a year, with plenty left over for your tea. I want to give you one more for the outside, and this is the one the young woman at the market found hardest to believe. And that is a splash of cold well water, or the coldest tap water you have, on the face every morning before anything else touches it. Not a long soak, just a good bracing splash, 10 or 15 seconds. What that cold water does is tighten the small blood vessels right under the skin for a spell, which brings a bit of natural colour and firmness to the face for hours afterward. The same flush you would get from a walk in cold air. It costs nothing at all and it takes 10 seconds, and I have done it every morning of my adult life without once thinking of it as a beauty routine. It was just how you woke a face up before there was coffee ready. There is one more piece to the outside of it, and this is the one that surprised the young woman at the market most of all when I told her. It is not a product at all. It is the sun, or rather, how I have handled the sun my whole life. I have never once used a bottle of sunscreen on my face, not one day in 71 years. And I want to tell you why, before you think I am telling you to go bake in it, because I am not. What I have done instead, every single day since I was a girl, is cover up. A wide-brimmed bonnet or hat whenever I am out past 9 in the morning. Long sleeves in the garden, even in the heat of July. Working the earliest hours and the later ones, and staying in the shade through the worst of the midday sun, rather than fighting it with a chemical. The sun does more damage to a face over a lifetime than nearly anything else does. It breaks down the very collagen we spoke of earlier, and it does it faster than age alone ever could. But a hat costs $6 once and does the job forever, and it never once had a recall or a rash on anyone in my house. If you already have some years of sun on your face, the way most of us do by 70, the damage already done cannot be undone by any cream, hers or mine. And I want to be honest with you here, because I will not sugarcoat it. A hat going forward is prevention, not repair. But you can stop adding to it starting today, and that alone slows the clock considerably. And it is also worth saying plainly that if you ever notice a spot on your skin that changes shape, changes colour, or will not heal, that is not a job for tallow or honey. That is a job for a doctor. The same day if you can manage it, and no amount of old family wisdom should ever talk you out of having a strange spot looked at properly. Now, I want to give you something for the neck and the jaw, because that is the place every woman my age worries over most, and almost nobody tells you a thing about it. A soft cloth wrung out in warm water, held against the neck and jaw for a minute or two before you apply your oil at night, opens up the small vessels there, the same as the cold splash does for the face, only warm instead of cold, and it lets whatever you put on after sink in deeper. And beyond that, there is a simple exercise my own mother did every night of her life at the kitchen sink, tipping her head back gentle and moving her jaw as though chewing slowly for a count of 20, which works the muscles that hold the skin of the neck and jaw up against gravity, the same way any muscle anywhere on the body needs working to stay firm. It feels foolish the first few times you try it. It costs nothing and it takes 1 minute, and my mother's neck at 80 looked better than mine did at 50 before I took up her habit myself. While I am on the subject of things that cost nothing, I want to spend a moment on sleep, plain, honest sleep, in the dark, at the same hour most nights. Your skin repairs itself while you are asleep. That is simply the hour the body has set aside for the work. And a woman who is up past midnight with a screen lit up in front of her face is robbing her own skin of its one chance each day to mend itself. I am in bed by 9 most nights and up before the sun, and I have been on that clock my whole married life. It was never about beauty when I started it. It was about the animals needing tending before light. But I will tell you plainly, The women I know who keep a late clock look older at 50 than I do at 70, and I do not think that is coincidence. And close beside sleep sits worry, because a face held tight with worry for years on end ages differently than a face that has learnt to let go of what it cannot control. I am not going to pretend I have never had cause to worry. Any woman raising a family through hard years has. But I have made a habit for 50 years now of a quiet half hour most evenings, sitting with nothing in my hands, no task, just sitting, often with a cup of the same tea my mother drank, chamomile or lemon balm from the garden, and letting the days settle before I go up to bed. There is real science behind why that matters now. Something about a substance called cortisol that the body makes when it is under strain, which in large, steady amounts breaks down collagen the same way sugar does. But I did not need the science to know it. I only needed to watch which women in my own community, under the same hard years and the same hard weather, came out the other side of them looking rested instead of wrung out. And it was always the ones who had made themselves sit still for half an hour most evenings, worry or no worry. Now let me put the whole of it side by side, so you can see plainly what this costs against what the other path costs, because that is the part that finally convinced the young woman at the market to try it my way. A course of the injections she was asking me about runs $400 to $1,000 a visit, and it is not a once-and-done thing. It wears off in 3 to 4 months, and you are back in that chair again, every single season, for as long as you want the effect to hold. Over 10 years, that is easily $10,000 to $20,000 spent, and at the end of it, you owe nothing. The moment you stop paying, your own face returns to exactly where it would have been anyway. A department store skincare routine, the cleanser and the toner and the serum and the night cream and the eye cream, runs most women $800 to $1,500 a year, every year, because the whole business is built on you running out and buying more. My routine: the bones for broth, the oil, the rendered tallow, the honey, the hat, runs me perhaps $60 a year, and most years less than that, because the bones are free and the tallow lasts months, and the hat I bought a decade ago still sits on the hook by my door. $60 against $1,500, and at the end of both years, I am the one still recognizing my own face in the mirror as mine. So why does nobody tell you any of this? Why is every answer you have ever been handed a jar or a needle or an appointment? It is the same reason as always, and there is no villain sitting in a boardroom plotting against your face. It is simply that there is no profit in a woman drinking bone broth she made from free bones, or wearing a $6 hat, or going to bed at a decent hour, or sitting quiet with a cup of tea for half an hour. Nobody can put a subscription on sleep. Nobody can charge you monthly for a jar of your own rendered tallow. The entire skincare and cosmetic industry survives on you buying the next thing and the thing after that forever. And a habit you build once and keep for free does not fit anywhere into that business. So the industry sells you the cream and the needle and leaves the truth sitting quiet in grandmother's kitchens the whole time, right where it always was. Here is what I want you to do, and I will lay it out plain so you can start tonight instead of putting it off. Tonight, wash your face with a plain oil instead of whatever is sitting in that bottle by your sink, just once, and feel the difference in the morning. This week, ask your butcher for bones. Most will hand them over for nothing. And get a broth going on the stove. And while you are there, ask about suet too, and try rendering a small batch of your own tallow. Tomorrow, find yourself a hat with a real brim on it and wear it the next time you are out past 9 in the morning. Cut the sweetened coffee or the soda down by half this month, not all at once, just half, and see how you feel by the end of it. And tonight before bed, sit still for half an hour with nothing in your hands and a cup of something warm, and try my mother's jaw exercise at the sink while you are at it, foolish as it feels the first time. None of it costs what 1 jar of the fancy cream costs, and none of it will leave you the same 3 months from now. Tell me in the comments how old you are and what your own mother or grandmother did for her skin, because I read every one of them and I learn something new nearly every week from you all. And next time, I want to sit down with you and go through what I keep in my pantry for the inside of a body, the teas and the tonics that I believe do more for how a woman ages than any cream ever could. Because the glow always starts on the inside of the plate before it ever shows up on the outside of the face. Until then, wash gentle, cover up from that sun, mind the sugar, and get yourself to bed on time. That is the whole secret, and it was never a secret at all.